Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Derek Smith, also known as Dr. Wholesale, and this is Wholesaling Houses 101 with Dr. Wholesaler. So let's start off with this. Why would anyone want to sell you their house, especially for as a wholesale deal? And that's going to be our topic for the day. Because the best prices and the best deals you come across are from motivated sellers. And basically there are two types of motivated sellers, or two types of sellers. A motivated seller is a person who needs to sell. Their need is a must, and they have to sell it now. The rational seller is a person who needs to sell their home, who basically wants to sell their home. There's no need. So the difference is the seller's needs. A rational seller who wants to sell their home will usually list it with a real estate agent. Want more money for the home, and generally there's no motivation to sell. They're not under any duress, and they can take their time selling their property. Now, if you determine a seller is setting on getting top dollar for their property, you might want to drop it because they are not a motivated seller. They are a rational seller. A motivated seller needs. Their need is a must to sell. Some can become real motivated, and each seller will have their own reason for needing to sell. A key point for you to remember is that it is our job to determine if the seller has a need or a want. That sounds okay, but what does it mean? This house, whether this is their residential or rental, now has become a liability for them. Because they will do almost anything to get rid of this liability, they are now motivated to do whatever it takes to get rid of this liability. This is where you're going to pick up the best deals. You have to locate the motivated sellers. Very few sellers are going to tell you that they are desperate up front. Some people just get in so far above their head, you can see the stress within their body language. You need to learn how to read people's body language, the tonality of their voice. Look for the clues when you are inspecting their home. If you ever find someone who openly expresses desperation to sell his property, proceed with caution because this could be a property with major problems, and there's more to the story than they are telling you, so be careful. I've found that nearly everyone who has owned property has become a motivated seller at one time or another. The reasons are different for each one, but we will look briefly at each one in just a few minutes. This I'm going to give you is by no means the only reason people become motivated to sell their homes. It is your job to find the true reason for their motivation, and this is where your people skills and listening skills come into play. Remember, just because this person is motivated does not make them less a person. Some have fallen on some bad luck or have made bad choices in the past. You should treat them like you want to be treated and never take advantage of them. Make all your deals a win-win. This business is too small to make a bad reputation for yourself. Also, because the seller is not motivated does not mean he will not be motivated later. So you might want to come back, take a look at the property later on, keep it in your database, and follow up because let me tell you, people's ideas change. Now, I have one rule when I do business, and that's all deals must be a win-win for all parties involved. There are some unscrupulous people out there. However, you don't want to be one of them. You want to be known for your integrity and for doing a good job. All right. One of the points I want to make, though, is that you use your people skills and you listen to what the sellers are telling you, and they're going to tell you how to buy their home. Okay. Basically, don't feel like you're taking advantage of anybody because you're going to be doing the stress homeowner a valuable service while making a nice profit for yourself. Okay. So really, they look at you as their savior. At this point, you're the only one that can do something for them. Okay. So what makes a person a motivated seller? Again, since we're all human, everyone will have their own reasons for their motivation. Remember, we are hunting for the person who needs to sell their home, not the person who wants to sell. There's a big difference in the two, and the person who wants to sell their home will just waste your time and theirs. That's not to say their needs and motivation will not change in the future, but you need to be an ego and concentrate on finding the motivated seller. Okay? So let's look at some of the reasons why people become motivated sellers. First one is foreclosure. Usually when these people call you, they've exhausted all other means to save their house. It does not mean that the home can't be saved, but you have to act fast because the time is ticking. This is where your buyers list comes in handy. And I'll talk about buyers list in one of my other tapes, one of my other DVDs. We'll cover this more later on. Loss of job is another big reason. Nothing like losing a job to motivate someone, right? They would probably be more credit conscious, but as long as the payments get paid, they're happy to get rid of this burden. This would be a good subject to probably deal, and having a buyers list, you know who to call if you get something like that. A lot of people are moving. I have one right now working on in El Paso, Texas. The person is moving. Um, but getting a job transfer and having a vacant home to watch over can be a nightmare for people. So maybe the owner of a residence that was transferred to another city with his job buys a second house and can't sell their first house. Do you think making 2 monthly payments can convert a seller into a motivated seller? Believe me, it can. I've purchased home with the same scenario a few times. Next is a rental property. Maybe a landowner gets sick and can't continue to keep up his rental house, or becomes fed up with tenant problems and wants to throw in the towel. You can come across this a lot when you're looking at properties, so be ready to move on those. Next is divorce. Maybe a couple of divorces is required, and they're required to sell their house in order to settle up the divorce. Unfortunately, you come across these all the time as well. Sometimes these are great for subject to, and sometimes they make good wholesale homes. Since this is divorce, you'll find yourself caught in the middle at times, but don't worry about that. Just handle your business. Financial problems, of course. Maybe a family is facing bankruptcy, and selling their house quickly is the only solution they see for relieving financial pressures. I've come across this more than I care to, and these homes make good subject to properties. So where do we look for these folks, basically? The short list of reasons is just the tip of the iceberg for why properties become motivated. I gave you. It happens every day. Someone who owns a house can become a motivated seller just like that, flash of a moment. Okay? So now let's look at ways to have the motivated seller call you. First of all, you need to look at their level of motivation. A motivated seller may also be called a desperate seller. Something has transpired in their life and transformed this normally rational seller into a frantic property owner who's determined to sell his property. It might be a life or death situation, or a life or death reason, or it might be a financial crunch, or it might even be inconvenience to the seller. It could be a change of taste, as in changing from likes to property to disliking the property, and now it has become a must. I must sell this property is what they're thinking. It's up to you to understand and figure out the seller's reasons for needing to sell this property. The motivated seller might resist your probing and asking questions, and they may even lie to you about their motivation to sell. They'll probably do their best to hide their real feelings, especially if they're selling due to one of the above reasons that I gave you. Remember this, they are human with feelings and may be embarrassed and don't want to tell you their true motivation. So some sellers will have a good poker face and their emotions may be hard to gauge. A motivated seller does everything possible to disguise it. When I first got started in real estate, I had trouble finding these motivated sellers. Actually, they're right there in front of me. I was just too inexperienced to realize it. We all know the definition of a motivated seller, but you have to experience a personal exchange with the seller to get the feel for it when you first get started. So if you want some of the best deals ever, learn how to ask the probing questions without being too direct. Remember this, let the seller know you are there to help them, and listen to their emotions and look behind their spoken words. When you see sense, when you sense you might have found a motivated seller, make an offer. I'll talk about that and the numbers and things like that later on, and then walk away with the contract. So that's it for today. Next we're going how to find a motivated seller in my next video. So thanks a lot. This is Dr. Wholesaler, and I'm Dr. Derek Smith.